What's up, grinders? Welcome back to the channel. So today we're going to be deconstructing another online polyglot to find out how good they are at the languages that they claim. So today we're going to be looking at Walter, and I have had endless requests to look at this guy. So here he is right now up on the screen, and I can't pronounce his surname, so I'm not even going to bother, but let's look at what he claims. So he says, "Hello, my name is Walter, and I speak 29 languages on different levels. I create content because I like to motivate my audience to use foreign languages." Now, if we have a look at his videos right here, just quickly scroll through them, you'll see that his content is pretty much in line with that of Kazoo Languages or Gabriel Polyglotta. So we can kind of see what his focus is. He's on the street, he basically does interviews with people, very short, or he chats with them and then he records their reactions. It's a common theme online, it's very, very popular. Now the problem is, speaks 29 languages could mean so many different things. It could mean that you can say a couple of words in a language, or it could mean that you've mastered the language, you are completely fluent in it, hell, you're even a teacher of the language. So we really need to dive down and figure out what he actually means by speaks 29 languages. So here's a news article, and again it says, "Talking the talk, I've taught myself 29 languages, now I've got my sights set on learning one more." And it's basically about his current employment, and then again it says, "A man self-taught 29 languages has set his sights on a new linguistic milestone, Swahili." So still, we haven't specified what speaks 29 languages actually means. Okay, now before we continue, one thing I've been made aware of as I've made these videos and my channel has grown in popularity is there's lots of people who come here and actually don't know anything about languages and even how to grade languages, and they hear the terms that we throw out, A level, B level, C level, etc., and they don't know what it means. So I'm going to do a quick dive into the Common European Framework, which is probably the most well-known way of assessing someone's language abilities. And if you have a look on the screen right here, we have A1 to C2. A1, basically, you're like super beginner. You know the greetings, you can introduce yourself, that's pretty much it. And then C2 is you've mastered the language. You pretty much can do everything a native can do, except for, let's say, have a perfect accent. But I want you to look at this graph here, and it looks like it's a linear progression. It is not, and I need to specify this. Okay, so this is what it actually looks like. You'll notice that the A1 and A2, they're at the beginning there, they're very small. There's barely a difference between A1 and A2. And even between A2 and B1, there's still very little difference. But then it substantially gets harder to go from B1 to B2 and then all the way up to C1. So remember, it's not a linear progression. It's more a curve that works like this. Okay, so after doing our investigation, we found one interview where he actually specifies his levels in different languages.
I also must tell you guys that I have different levels in all these languages, all right? So sometimes there's a sort of like discussion going on, like what is speaking a language, you know? There are some people who think that you only speak a language which you speak when you speak it fluently, all right? So yeah, in that case, you know, like, I speak English fluently and Dutch, basically. That's it, you know. I think I speak Spanish, Portuguese, German, and French at B2 level, which is like upper intermediate, and all the other 23 languages are at a basic level.
Okay, so what he's basically saying is he does not speak 29 languages. Because if you go out on the street and you say to someone, "I speak 29 languages," they imagine that you can have a pretty good conversation in at least 29 languages. They don't imagine that you can like present your name or do a basic greeting. But let's map this out. Okay, so what I've done is I've taken the Common European Framework and I put these languages on here. And you'll notice I put English with Dutch because he mentioned that he spoke them fluently, but realistically, fluency can be anywhere from B2 all the way up to C2. It's hard to put that somewhere, so we will move the English to where it needs to be once we do a review of his English. And you notice I've put the Spanish, Portuguese, German, and French in the B1 to B2 range, and remember, that's on that curve. Now, obviously, this doesn't cover all the 29 languages, so we needed to keep digging to find out what his level is, his self-perceived level is in these languages. Now, what we did manage to find was a short video where he was talking with another polyglot and he was wearing a badge on his chest. And this badge is what you generally wear when you go to a polyglot event. It's an event where you basically present the languages you speak, you find others, and you just have chats, and then you take part in conferences. And what you can do is you can put little flags on there to represent the languages that you speak. And we spotted that.
Hello, I met someone here who speaks a lot of languages. I'm not sure which.
So what we've done is we've just zoomed in and we can see right here he's claiming English at a C level. So that fits in line with where I put it on the graph. And then you can see a bunch of other languages at the B level and then a whole heap at the A level. But this is quite blurry and it's hard to make out exactly what some of these flags mean. And then we got lucky and we found this exact same badge on Twitter. Here it is. As you can see, it's the exact same badge. Now, if we zoom in, we can see all the flags quite clearly. Now, you probably are going to notice something, and I need to point this out because otherwise my comment section will be spammed with this. A bunch of these flags are upside down. So this is the list of those flags, their names, and also the ones that are marked upside down. Now, I imagine it happened like this because I need to be honest about how this probably happened. Is he was wearing the badge at the event, someone gave him the flags, he looked down and he put the flags on. And they probably looked like the right direction when you're looking like this. Now, that makes sense. However, he took this badge off and then took a photo for Twitter and didn't notice that some of these flags were upside down. Which, if you spoke these languages, you would probably know the flags for these languages, so it's kind of strange that he did miss this. Okay, so now we've got a more substantial list of the languages that he speaks, or at least the ones he's confident enough to publicly say that he speaks without just having short clips within those videos online. So what I've done is the ones that are in red are the ones that he verbally confirmed during that interview. The blue one, Dutch, is his native language, and then the purple ones are the ones that were visible on that badge. So straight up, just taking it as it is, if I was to tell someone that I spoke a bunch of languages and they asked me how many, I would say English, Dutch, Filipino, Chinese, Spanish, Portuguese, German, and French. 8 languages. I would not say 29 languages or even 20 plus. Okay, so before we actually start analyzing each of those main languages, and we'll focus on the ones that are basically B-level plus, I want to show you this document, which will be attached in the description below. Basically, it contains all the details of this video, plus a ton more on every single language that we could find or find details on, and it includes reviews from individuals. So if you have a look, for his French, we have 4 reviewers who reviewed his French and 3 separate videos, that have been reviewed. So during this video, we're not going to review all his languages and we're not going to review all his videos. I'm going to give you a short segment so you can basically get a taste test. And then if you're more interested, go to the description. This will be linked there. You can do your own analysis of those languages. So naturally, we're going to start with English.
Like you guys are probably used to my language entertainment content, you know, so most videos are about, practicing languages on the streets. I have some multilingual prank videos. And some people ask me in the comments, like, do you also have like some educative content? Well, of course, there are some language videos which are on my YouTube channel, like just public videos. And in this video, I want to talk about something else. In this video, I want to talk about my language booklet. So I created my own digital booklets, and I just want to tell about the existence because, like, I'm not sure if you guys know that already. So I created my own language booklets. I have them right now for French, German, and Spanish, and they're 10 pages each, and each booklet is including an audio file. So I recorded my own voice, and I'm explaining about the language and stuff like that.
Okay, so realistically, if you're watching this channel, you can make your own analysis of his English capabilities, but I will show the document just so we can have a quick look. So here is the English comments. As you can see, we really didn't need that many English comments because everyone can make their own analysis. So based on that clip and many others, you would have heard that there were several mistakes that were made, which takes you out of the C2 level and realistically puts him somewhere probably around the C1 level, maybe even an upper B2, but I'm going to be generous and say this is definitely a C1 level. And by the way, he only said that he is fluent in English. He did not say that he was like a master of English or anything like that. So this is simply us moving his English to where it should be based on our own analysis. This is not him lying about his capabilities with English. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at his Tagalog. Now, on the actual picture, you would have seen this listed as Filipino because originally we were basing this off the flags, but we couldn't find anything for Filipino, but we did find Tagalog, and essentially they are basically two of the same language in some ways, but there is some differences.
gusto kong nang interview kasama mo sa Tagalog. Sige. Yeah, oo, marunong ako mag-Tagalog. Anong gusto mong gawin ngayon araw?
Ang galing ah.
Ang galing? Talaga? Maraming salamat. Pero anong gusto mong gawin ngayon araw?
Maglakad at mag-shopping.
Mamasyal rin. Mamasyal. Gusto ko rin mamasyal. Gusto ko rin sumayaw. Gusto mo bang sumayaw rin?
Pwede naman.
Oo. Anong trabaho mo? Hindi ko alam. Ikinagagalog kong makilala ka at gusto kong ipakilala sa inyo ang kaibigan ko.
Sino?
Pero hindi ko alam saan ang kaibigan ko.
Kasi kaibigan mo.
Now, if you read the subtitles, you probably would have noticed that the topic of conversation randomly changed at least 3 times in that small clip, which means something was cut out of the middle. And it's obvious something was cut out because there is jump cuts. So one of the things that the reviewers actually pointed out that doesn't necessarily happen in that specific clip that I took, but in other clips that he has uploaded, is that he often mis-subtitles the people who are talking to him, which implies that maybe he doesn't understand what they're saying or he gets the general gist and therefore he has to basically, change the subtitles to fit the conversation. So in essence, he's definitely not a B2. If anything, he's an A1 upper, maybe an A2, but he's definitely not a B2. Okay, let's move on to Mandarin Chinese, my personal favorite.
I'm going to prank strangers in their own native language. Before we proceed with this video, I want to tell something about my audio lessons for Chinese and Spanish. You can find these audio lessons on my Patreon page. The link is in the description. And for only $5 per month, you get access to both languages.
Now, I've just included this tiny segment in before he actually does the Chinese conversation because it's actually important. It tells you why the discussion goes the way it does in the video. He's doing a prank, basically. But additionally, he's selling Chinese courses, and I will comment on this afterwards. What do you think about Amsterdam, the city?
I think the city, the weather, I have to say the weather is quite cold.
Weather.
Weather is cold.
我听不懂 weather.
Weather, the wind, is there windy?
我不知道这个词 weather.
你会讲中文？
So you probably noticed that she actually didn't catch him speaking Chinese at first.
你会说中文吗？你真的会说中文？我不会说英文很好，不好意思，我的中文还可以。对，这个很好。我想知道，今天很多的下雨。
So everything beyond the most simple sentences which he started with, which were like 你会说中文吗？你会说中文吗? Which was basically, do you speak Chinese? Quickly deteriorate. Basically, the tones go completely out the window, and his actual pronunciation of the specific sounds of Chinese are almost incomprehensible at points.
但是你真的会说中文，为什么？
我是台湾人。
好，我说一句英文。你非常喜欢很多的国家吗？你去过泰国、韩国，去过吗？
韩国、日本。
好，日本也很好。对，这个非常好。好的，我可以要这个视频，可以吗？
Okay, so that very last part, he said, and I'm going to try repeat what he said. 我可以要这个视频吗? Which doesn't really make sense, but it's understandable from context. What he meant to say was 我可以用这个视频吗? And that actually means, can I use this video? So, yao and yong have 2 different meanings in Chinese. So yao means to need or to want or will, and yong means to use. So it's quite confusing. Okay, so basically there's no way he's a B2. He's more like an A1, maybe touching on an A2 type of thing. And the reason I say this is because I'm probably somewhere around a B2, maybe a B1 plus B2. I'm not too sure. But I could clear as day spot the mistakes that he was making, and he was using very simple sentences. And I've watched the other videos he's done where he's done like interviews in Mandarin Chinese, and it's basically very simple sentences, the type that you just kind of spin around in a circle and you keep using over and over and over. Okay, next language, Spanish.
¿Por qué hablas español?
Porque es lo mismo base que el portugués.
Claro.
Claro, en la escuela aquí también español.
Sí, es muy bueno. Sí, me gusta siempre conocer otras poliglotas, entonces es muy chévere.
¿Puedes hablar varios idiomas?
Sim, então eu posso praticar muitos idiomas com as pessoas. Sim. Eu falo. Obrigado.
Decimos mucho che boludo. Algo muy normal en decir. Soy de Buenos Aires, así que se me pronuncia con mucho más la R. Y
Eres de Buenos Aires, puedo entender, pero el acento es muy fuerte. Conozco las personas de Argentina siempre dicen, por ejemplo, yo.
sí, es muy diferente al español de Centroamérica, que es más yo.
Sí,
Nosotros somos más yo,
sí.
playa.
Ya.
Hacemos-
Puedo escuchar muy bien, pero tengo un problema porque hace mucho frío.
Sí.
Yo quiero un abrazo, por favor. Porque, ya, entonces puedo escuchar mejor, porque ahora es un poco difícil para focalizar, pero...
Okay, so let's have a look at the reviews. 7 years ago, he was an A1, A2 at best. However, he has made progress, but they still don't think he's quite a B2. Now, this person says with the original video from about 7 years ago, he was basically an A1, A2, similar to the first person. However, with a more recent video, he's now maybe a B1, B2. So, in summary, Spanish stays where it currently is. Now we're going to watch his Portuguese, but before we do, I want to stress why I think these videos are important, because the first time I watched this clip, which we're about to watch together, I thought he was really fluent. It seemed really fluent, because I don't speak Portuguese. It flowed nicely, subtitles made sense, there was barely any jump cuts, everything seemed to be going exactly how you would expect it. Until I read the reviewers' comments afterwards. So let's watch the clip, and let's see if you spot the problems.
Por que você fala português também?
Porque eu quero falar com vocês.
Mas você aprendeu?
Sim, eu aprendi com o meu papagaio brasileiro, na minha casa. Sempre eu posso aprender muitas palavras, mas a minha papagaia não está aqui agora, mas na minha casa. Sim. Eu tenho 2 gatos também. Sim.
Eu também tenho um gato.
Você tem um gato? Como se chama?
Lucy.
Lucy? É o gato. Qual personalidade o seu gato tem? Eu não sei.
Ela é na dela. Ela gosta de ficar sozinha.
Ah, sozinho. E você também sozinho ou não? Ah, sim. Sempre eu posso mirar que o animal tem partes de personalidade de outra pessoa. Sim. Você tem mais animais ou não?
Não.
Um caranguejo?
Não.
Eu tampouco. Sim. E você tem um caranguejo?
Caranguejo não.
Caranguejo não. 3? Os gatos são peligrosos ou não?
Não, eles são muito adoráveis.
Sim.
Eles me acordam com um beijinho.
Ah, um abraço. Sim, também. Eu quero um abraço também. Que legal. Ah, você também? You guys are amazing, man. What a sweethearts, man. Wow. Super good. E você, o qual animal você tem? Eu não sei.
Não, meu cachorro morreu.
Que legal.
Eu tinha um cachorrinho.
Um cachorrinho. Que legal.
Rua, medroso.
Sim.
Okay, as you saw, if you don't speak Portuguese, that seems like a really nicely flowing conversation. It seemed to discuss a pretty interesting topic. Let's have a look at the comments. The third sample, which is the video that we just watched, might be the best one. It feels like the one of his least scripted videos. Although you can still sense he clings onto a present structure in the conversation, and he depends more on having actually come up with stuff. His flaws get more noticeable. So basically, as the conversation progresses, flaws become more evident, and he starts relying on using Spanish and starts mixing up genders of the word parrot, which I guess that's possible. However, this is where it gets really interesting. The cherry on top is when he asks what animals the guy in the middle has. The Brazilian answered that his dog died. Walter replied back by saying, "That's cool." Best part is that he even hides that in the subtitles, as the part the guy says about his dog being dead is subtitled as "I have a dog." So basically, afterwards, he's reviewed the video, he's spotted that he's made a mistake, the other guy said "my dog's died," and he just decides to use subtitles and hide that mistake by saying "I have a dog." Which, to me personally, if I noticed that type of mistake in my own video, if I was on the street, I would just cut that part of the video, because hiding this behind subtitles makes you look really scammy. Additionally, based on the reviews, he's definitely not in the B range. He's actually more around the A1, A2 range, so that has now been pushed over to the left. And as you can see, more and more languages are now moving over towards the A range out of the B range. Okay, so now we're going to take a look at his German.
Okay, hallo.
Ja, also es geht mir sehr gut. Wie geht es mit dir? Also es regnet sehr viel, aber es geht mir sehr gut. Also kommst du aus Deutschland?
Ja.
Ja, ich kann das wirklich hören. Du hast einen Akzent aus Berlin, oder nicht?
Ja.
Nee? Hannover? Nee. Ich weiß das wirklich nicht. Also was ist das?
Aus Heidelberg.
Heidelberg.
Heidenheim, ja.
Also und warum siehst du so aktiv und sportiv aus? Was machst du eigentlich? Also ja, Machst du etwas mit Sport oder?
Ach so, ja, ich bin Leichtathletik.
Oh, wirklich?
Ja.
Machst du auch Yoga oder etwas?
Ja,
oder?
jeden Morgen auch.
Ah, das ist wirklich, das ist sehr gut. Also wenn du tief einatmen möchtest, tief ausatmen, deine Gedanken bearbeiten.
Ja,
Also das ist sehr gut. Also ich habe auch sehr viel Stress und sehr viele Leute hier in den Niederlanden haben sehr viel Stress.
Okay, so let's quickly jump through each of the reviewers. This one says he struggles with pronunciation, but he might be a high B1. This one says that he held a conversation at a B1, maybe a B2 level. This one reckons he's a solid B1, maybe B2, B1, B2, and then a B1. So German stays where it is in the B range. Okay, so now let's take a look at his French.
Et tu parles français?
Je parle français aussi, pas de problème. En fait, combien de langues est-ce que tu parles? Est-ce que tu es un polyglotte ou...
Ouais.
Ouais?
Je parle anglais, français, turc.
Ouais, tu parles 3 langues.
Ouais.
Waouh, c'est super. Et en fait, tu as appris les langues où?
Bah, en Turquie, j'ai grandi en Turquie.
Ouais.
Et j'ai déménagé en France et je parle français du coup maintenant.
Ah, j'habite à Amsterdam ici. Et ici, il y a beaucoup de gens de la France. Il y a aussi beaucoup de restaurants avec la cuisine française.
Ouais, français.
Et c'est super. Ouais.
D'accord.
Tu habites
Paris.
À Paris?
Oui, à Paris.
Ah, c'est très joli aussi là-bas.
C'est pas très joli, mais bon.
Ah oui.
Ouais. C'est pas très joli.
Pourquoi pas?
Ah, c'est dangereux.
Ah, dangereux.
Ouais, dangereux.
Il y a beaucoup de protestes.
Beaucoup de prothèses et beaucoup de voleurs aussi.
Ah oui, c'est dangereux peut-être.
Okay, we've heard the conversation, let's check out the reviews. Basically, most of the reviews jump somewhere between an A2 and a B1 range. Some of them put him a little bit higher, some put him a little bit lower. So for French, I've had to shift it slightly down. It's not quite B range, but it's kind of upper A2 range. So he's almost a B range, but not quite. Okay, so let's check out one last language from the A list here. We'll look at Italian.
E parli italiano fluentemente, sì, la lingua madre. Sì, molto bene, sì. E che cosa vuoi fare oggi? Non lo so.
In italiano?
In italiano, puoi parlare in italiano, è meglio per me. Sì, certo.
Facciamo un giro per negozi, musei, un po' di shopping.
Wow, che cosa vuoi comprare oggi?
Ancora non lo sappiamo, souvenir.
Yeah, della casa, sì, è molto importante. Sì, anche mi piace molto la cultura d'Italia. Per esempio il cappuccino,
cibo.
Sì, posso mangiare molto. E qui in Amsterdam, qui a Amsterdam, conosco anche un buon ristorante per mangiare la pizza qui. Pizzeria di Michele, molto bene. Yeah.
Vuoi andare a bere un cappuccino?
Okay, so now let's have a look at where he scored. So overall, it's hard to determine where he is, and this is actually quite common. The more basic someone is at a language, as long as they can pronounce it correctly, they can script out a few sentences, they can look a lot higher than they actually are. So this person puts him somewhere between A2 and possibly B1. And this person says that he's probably reached a high A2, but B1 is too high of a bar, which means in our graph here, his location doesn't move. Now, I'm not going to review videos for all these other languages here, plus additional ones we've found. Instead, I'm just going to give a quick summary based on that document. Okay, so the overall analysis is that his French is okay, but not quite intermediate. And his Spanish and German would be basically an intermediate. So this is definitely not I speak 29 languages. Now, I know he's specified on different levels, but realistically, you should not even be saying that you speak 29 languages when all you can do is regurgitate a very basic script in a bunch of those languages. And not even a bunch, in the majority of those languages. Now, there's one last thing I want to point out. He's from the Netherlands, and the Netherlands is well known for being a multilingual country where people generally grow up with multiple languages. If you have a look here on the screen, we can see that 97% of the population speak Dutch, which is his native language. Then 85% speak English, German at 42%, French at 12%, and Spanish at 3%. So looking at this, he seems to speak and focus on and be good at the same languages as other people would from his country. Now, I'm not trying to take away from his language skills here, but this does add context to the overall conversation. So the languages he's gotten good at are probably languages he grew up with, or are languages he's been surrounded with for a substantial amount of time. This is not like Kazoo languages, who I've reviewed previously. Kazoo Languages actually went out and learnt languages from multiple different language families from around the world and got good at them. So I would say Kazoo Languages is a more accomplished polyglot. And then, of course, Gabriel Polyglotta is way more accomplished than that. Now, there's one last thing I want to point out, which I think is very important here. He mentioned that he's selling courses or lessons. I'm not sure because they seem to no longer exist or I can't get access to them. They were on Patreon. I can't find them anymore. But he was selling them for Mandarin Chinese and Italian. I almost gave you guys the middle finger. Mandarin Chinese, Italian, and then also Spanish. Now, I can tell you right now, for Mandarin Chinese, this guy is nowhere near competent enough to teach anyone this language. He is a beginner. I'm going to be completely honest about this. I would not recommend anyone buy an English course from him because even his English is riddled with errors and problems. There are people out there who are way more competent who have learned this language who I would recommend, but not from this guy. So overall, my analysis of this guy is that he has massively oversold his abilities. Now, I know he likes to redefine speak and say, well, realistically, I'm only fluent in 2 languages, but I do speak, 20 whatever plus languages. No, you don't. You have memorized scripts for the majority of those languages, and then for some of those languages, you are intermediate, and then realistically, you're only fluent in a couple of languages. Now, I guess the ultimate question, the one you've all been waiting for me to answer is this guy a fraud? I'm going to say that he's danced along the line of being a fraud. He's had 1 foot in that area and 1 foot out. He's basically managed to navigate it just close enough that I can't, in all honesty, call him a fraud, but he is not trustworthy. And he does not speak the number of languages he claims to speak. That is it. If you've liked this video and you want me to investigate anyone else, please drop their name in the comments below or join the Discord, and I'll see you all in the next video. And if you're not there, well then I will find you and I'll investigate why you're not there.